Okay, everybody. So I've just started recording and transcribing this talk. So we're going to spend today having a look at interviews and supporting you through the UCAS process a little bit more. Most of you have now applied, unless you're going for a late application this year, of which there are many places. We're actually in a bit of a dip in the demographic in the UK, which means that there were more places than students. You're in quite an advantageous position this year with that. But I'm quite sure there's a good few things that are going to come up as we go along today. Now, what I'm going to do to start with, I'm going to open up the first of the three documents which I've attached to this meeting. And if you haven't managed to find those, you should be able to do that quite easily by just going to the OCAD channel, or if you're in Foundation, as I can see most of you here are, you can just go to the UCAS support channel, which we've got there. It's called Progression on ours, actually, on our page. So let me just do a quick share here on the first document here. And please stop me at any point if you feel that I'm going off on a bit of a tangent or I'm not in the right place where you need to be. But I promise you all the things I will talk about today will dovetail with each other and will make some sense. So let's have a look at the first document I've got here. And this is about portfolio building. Now, we've talked to most of our students about portfolio building quite carefully, but we want to make sure that as you're asked for these things, and I know that there's a great rush in January and into early February with universities reaching out and saying, please submit a portfolio. And I know that can be a very, very stressful thing. I've been there myself, and so has Joe, although a number of years back. And I know that it's really important to try and put your best foot first and be proud of the sort of work that you're making. But I'm just going to quickly cover some of the things that we've written out here anyway. And this isn't a definitive guide. This isn't the only way you can do things, but it would certainly be a very useful scaffolding for that. So we're thinking to try and go for about 18 to 20 pages on a portfolio is a really good way. Now, I spent a lot of time with lots of different universities when I used to work for University of Arts London, and I used to go around and try and work out what's best for students to progress to different places. And one of the things that we worked out was there was no standard format anywhere. The best thing being that you
Agreed.
have an online presence of some sort. The easiest thing being that you have a link that you can send to people. And if you want to create something, you want something nice which will be easy to show to people, websites such as Wix can be quite good. They do a free, immediate sort of thing that you can join, and it's very easy. You know, it's quite modern day tech. It's a bit nicer than PowerPoint. It's a bit more drag and drop. So you can quickly produce something on there. And for those of you that have still got Unit 4 sort of to go, or might be progressing into next year with that, you know, this can be a really nice addition to that as well too on Foundation, where you can link that unit as well too. For those of you that might be on Access courses, obviously the sooner you produce a good online presence, the better. But we've put down what sorts of things we would expect you to be trying to put on there. So, you know, pages 1 to 8, your strongest places, including sort of different varieties of mediums and techniques. So I really think any portfolio, you should open it up and think, wow, because I remember back in the days of sitting with a pile of physical universities when I was based in a university for nearly 20 years. And I'd be sat there in a room with a great big pile of black obelisks, you know, and I'd be looking at them and flicking through and thinking, oh, it's a bit dull sometimes, you know, but every now and then there'd be a diamond in a bag of marbles. You know, you would open up that first page and you would think, wow, look at this. It's a great portfolio. And I really think you should lead with your best foot on this. You should have your absolutely most beautiful piece of work that you're most proud about right at the start. And you should also make sure that all of the work that's in your portfolio, you can talk about it. You can talk about the projects that are behind it. You know, because you're going to an academic institution. If you're going to university, you need to be able to academicize that work. And so in your head, every piece should also have something you can say with it behind it. And then we think pages 9 to 14 would be quite nice to have some development in here. Now, universities want to see this because this is your coursework. This is how you develop ideas. This is how well you work in a non-examined situation where your examinations are just your coursework. So they're very keen to see your creative process, whether that be a sort of art, design, or a media methodology, and the types of sketches and brainstorming and, you know, the different things that you do to get to an idea. Because what you're doing is you're making yourself into a little sort of a, you know, an early years creative here. where you're starting to think about how you might explain these ideas to others, whether that be an art gallery or, a design piece that Joe might be making for somebody, or it might be a treatment that I'm making for a client, Joe being a fashion and sort of textile designer, and myself being a photographic studio manager. So, between us, we all have ways of trying to explain what we're doing. And this shows that you're developing those skills. You're starting to get to that point. So some best pages of sketchbook work, some lovely pieces of mid-project thinking, some exciting jumps forward where perhaps you made a huge mistake and then it turned into the most fantastic creative solution in terms of methods and materials. So that sort of stuff in there. And then a bit more project development through in here as well. So initial drafts, feedback, iterations, refinement. So a little bit of showing like that process of refining and distilling, So we've got a bit of early experimentation here and a bit of you showing how well you slam dunk the project and bring it together. And then down here, a little bit of stuff around materials and risk-taking, Risk-taking is where we all break new ground. Risk-taking is where exciting things happen. And risk-taking is the thing you're here to learn. At any art college of any sort, you're here to push yourself beyond what is comfortable, to break new ground. So, they want to see that you're doing that stuff. So you can see that in there. That'd be lovely. So we've given some simple little steps there to gather your best work, to choose the right platform. And I'm not going to go through all this, but that's there available for you to have a look at. Add in sketchbook pages in certain ways and prepare it for review so that you're really sure with the tutor this is the right sort of portfolio for you and that the tutor feels it's good. Now, for us, that's quite easy because you can just ping that across to us and we can have a quick look through. And if you think there's any worries, we'll come back to you. Now, the structure above, as I said, it's not definitive, but it's not a bad way of doing things. And about 20 pages online will be a lovely portfolio size. So one of the other things just to add in here, try and think about, how you're going to digitize this work. Quite a lot of my students are working in Sketchbook and then digitizing that in various ways. Thank you, Simon. I've got a cup of coffee just arrived here in my studios. My lovely friend who works downstairs. That's brilliant. Thanks, Simon. He's a master coffee maker who often knocks me out with a strong cup. Thanks, mate. That's great. And, try and think about how you're going to digitize that work, how you're going to photograph it well. As a photographer, I would say, get any of that work if it's paintings and it's drawing or if it's like textile practice or anything like that, which has got a physicality to it as opposed to digital practice, and go and, just photograph it outdoors, but find yourself a nice big shadow. When stuff's in bright light, it doesn't look good. When it's in shadow, it's in a nice grey, gloomy environment where all of the colours come out and it's not interrupted by bright light. So a good shadow on the edge of the building on a sunny day is the most perfect place to photograph things. And even with one of these, you'll end up with a great job. It'll come out really well. Keep getting feedback on the sorts of things that you're doing. It's a bit last minute now because most of you would be putting things together. But, I get students all the time sending me a couple of pictures they've mocked up and saying, which one of these do you think looks better? And I'm always pretty pleased to just quickly put a mark on that and let them know. And, just be organised with all your digital stuff because once you start photographing everything, it does start ending up everywhere. So, we've just put a little bit of support stuff on there. So that's the first of the 3 documents. So just talking about portfolio before we move to the next stage we're going to talk about. Are there any questions you want to drop into the chat, or is there anything you want to ask us about this that didn't seem clear or was a bit unsure? What do you think? Can we see anything in the chat there, Joe? I'm a bit full screen. No. So, we're here to work with you and talk to you, and we'll talk to you one-to-one at the end of this if you require. No, nothing now. Okay, so that's all clear. That's really good. That shows we're in the right place. So I'm going to share the next document now. Just give me a second. I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to find the next of these. In fact, I'll just show you where these are again.
And I have got some portfolios after the next presentation. We can just share, from different genres, really. So, some might not be quite in the same format that you've written out because they're past students, but some might adhere to those sort of elements quite well.
So the first document I showed you was here, and we're just on the foundation page here, but it's also the same if you go on to the OCAD channel for lectures as well too. I've copied it in there if you're not part of the foundation course. So the next one here is about supporting interviews. So let's just go on to here. And this is our general advice for supporting interviews. So some of you will be attending physical interviews, and some of you will also be going out to various places and meeting people for the first time, which is unnerving if you're used to working in a physical course. And if you're working an online course, is twice as bad probably. But also it's a great opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to be proud, to go and tell other people in this world that you love art. And you know, these people running universities with art, and especially some of the monotechnics that run just art courses, you're going to be really pleased to see that next wave of people coming through. And one of the main reasons Joe and I do this, because we're both practitioners, it's because we love being around young people and feeling that energy, and we're not going to be around forever doing this stuff. Sorry, Joe. But you know, it gives us great energy to do it, and it's also really inspiring to see that other young people want to get involved in doing these things. We've sustained ourselves for most of our lives with just doing creative ventures.
And interviews are not here they're not there to be scary in any way. They're just there to get to know you and meet you and understand what your work's about and how you fit into their university.
Yeah. They're not here to trip you up or have sport with you or make you feel bad. These people are just trying to understand you. And if you come across well, then they will understand you in the first instance without any stress. So first thing here, we've broken it down into little chapters, is to understand the process. Now, every university will be very clear and will show you what the process is. Okay, they will show you on their page. It will say what to expect for an interview. If you go to Falmouth, if you go to Arts University, Bournemouth, if you go to Brighton, if you go to Edinburgh. I looked at all of these last night, and every single one of them has guidance on there. Falmouth is a really great guidance on there. Fantastic stuff. I had a really good look at that, and I particularly like the Brighton University one too. So, you know, do have a good look and see what they say. They'll say, please expect this, you know, and they'll take you through it. So be prepared to discuss your ideas and your creative process. Make sure that you can talk about your work. Now, one of the best ways with this that dovetails with your portfolio is making sure that the work in your portfolio is academicized. I talked about this before, but making sure that it links to a project mainly. Most of it should be quite recent in your portfolio, last couple of years. Yeah, that's really the best place to have work because it'll be fresh in your mind. It'll be easy to talk about. It may be you've got the odd image in there, which is just a standalone image. But if it is, and if it's come from somewhere else, this happens a lot with photographers. They just shoot a really good shot and want to put it in their portfolio. You should be prepared to talk around that a little bit conceptually. Okay, so don't be thrown by having made something good. Or, you know, I'm dealing with quite art-based methodologies when I say conceptually. If it was more of a design-based methodology, then you should talk about the ideas and the processes that might sort of fit around that. Okay. Also, make sure that your personal statement, that you know it. This is a real biggie. I've interviewed students before, and I've alluded to things that have been said in a personal statement, and they've been a bit blank, and it's been quite obvious that either they had a lot of help with writing that statement, or they wrote it so long ago it wasn't really current anymore. So please make sure you've given it a good read just before you come back in, because somebody will probably say, oh, I looked at your portfolio and referred to Anselm Kiefer. I think he's fantastic. I was at the show only recently. What was it you thought about that work that informed you? And then you know, if you haven't actually, you know, been sure about the references, particularly that you've given on there, that can be a sort of point at which you can lose confidence. Okay. And if you do lose confidence at any point in an interview, just say, would you mind if we just move on? I don't really feel too confident on that point. And then people will be fine with that. Yeah. Just let them know. They're just trying to work with you and get information from you when they interview you. So any course specific questions, you know, understand what the university expects from you, but also understand what you're after getting from the university. Yeah. Don't be afraid to ask for how long you might get in a tutorial, how much teaching contact time you might get. How much work could you do online and how flexible are they if you went away during term time? All these sorts of things are really worth knowing. Yeah.
Studio space is one big thing.
Of course, Joe. It's a huge one, isn't it? What's your access to studio space, you know, and what are the restrictions? I know if you go to some universities, there's some amazing things. My favorite ever was at it was in New York at NYU. Oh, no, it was at Parsons. Parsons in New York is a fantastic university, and they have 24-hour access to students, and they had beds in there as well, too. And you could actually swipe a card, and you could have a small bed for a few hours or for the night in the dorm room. And it would mean that if you're a photographer and you're processing your film all night back in the days, then you could then get a bit of sleep and not have to travel back into New York again for your next day's lectures. So it's quite fantastic, really. So, I mean, that's one example. And then other examples might be that there's almost no access at all, or there's only an hour or two a week because it's so pushed with students. So it's a great question to ask that. You know, it's an expensive time going to university, and you must make sure you're getting absolute value for what you want, you know. So bear in mind that they're pitching something to you in sales when you go there, and make sure that, you know, it's got the sort of stuff that you think might be right. So with a portfolio preparation, we've covered that really anyway, okay? But it's worth having a bit of physical stuff on the day as well too. You know, just in case the digital fails, and it's certainly worth having a little backup of your stuff somewhere digitally on you as well too, because you know what we're all like, even us, like, and Joe and I, sometimes, you know, digital things can go wrong. We weren't born with the internet, and many of your lecturers won't have been. So just make sure that, you know, you can prop them up a little bit if that doesn't help. So I'm going to leave the portfolio session preparing for common interview questions. Okay, these are really common questions I put down here. I tried to pick some of my best. Why do you want to study this course? I mean, that's a great question, isn't it? But you should really understand that. You should have a very clear answer for that straight away. I want to study this course because it's the best graphic design degree in the country, and it links directly to a Quent agency who I would aspire to work to in the future. That would be a good answer, wouldn't it, if you're doing graphics, maybe? Quent being the biggest agency in the country, and if you're a graphic designer, please look them up. So which artists and designers influence your work and why? Come on then, Joe. Who
Me.
influences your work and why?
Oh, gracious. Everybody influences my work. You probably Anson O'Keefe is one of them.
Yeah, no, O'Keefe is great.
You know, Tillmans, you know, Colour, all sorts of people.
Yeah, I had some students from school come into my photographic studios the other day, and I was talking to them about how my work's quite influenced by David LaChapelle, because I quite like making, you know, dioramas or like created scenes or narrative production, even though I find the work a bit sort of garish. But then it was really interesting. People said, oh, you know, who's David LaChapelle? And I said, well, David LaChapelle, the photographer, who's very interesting if you don't know him, but he's synonymous with photographing big celebrities who are a little bit out there, like anyone from Outkast to Britney Spears and Eminem, and everyone in the middle will get photographed by David LaChapelle. But David LaChapelle is very interesting, and it's very bright, colourful work. But he was Andy Warhol's first studio assistant. So Andy Warhol had a photographic studio assistant called David LaChapelle, who went on to be one of the greatest sort of photographers out there. Now, knowing some stuff like that sounds really good. It makes you understand how things join together and link up in this world. So a couple of the students wrote that straight down. I thought that was great stuff when I came up with that the other day.
Sets you apart, doesn't it, from the rest
you know,
as well?
it knocks you out. So if you're pretty good with your research, then this is a good time for you to shine, to say, you know, these things have inspired me, these things interest me. So the next bit here, can you discuss a challenging project and how you resolved it? That'd be a really good one for you all to practice if you're going to go to university. Yeah. I did a project once with some students, and I said, we're going to do a project where you take a project that's failed and you have to make it start again. I thought it was really fun. But I think nearly all of my projects have been challenging, and quite a lot of them sometimes, you know, as you get older and, you know, your projects aren't linked to any particular thing. I've got about 5 or 6 projects which are sort of on the go for the last 5 or 10 years, really, that I've sort of shelved. I've got one which is 30 years old, which are a whole load of travel pictures I made going around Southeast Asia, which have been sat in a box of about 5,000 slides for 30 years and are waiting for somebody to bring them out and do something with. So I've got lots of stuff like that. But you, in the smallest way, you've probably got a project, you know, you probably went out and did something like textures and layers. Let's pick that, because many of you on foundation will be engaging with that. For those of you not on foundation, I'm sorry. But, you know, you might have got into that project and thought, gosh, this is an awful lot of processes here. And then I was expected to somehow bring it together at the end. And that was really challenging because I didn't know how to bring that together. Talking about that and being honest is really good. It may be that you resolved it by a horrendous accident turning into something really exciting, and you were perceptive enough to notice that. Yeah, because most of my best work, well, you know, that came from bloody great accidents that became exciting things, you know. I spilt something on something and looked at it and turned it upside down. It looked brilliant, and then I refined that as a process, you know. That's just the sort of stuff they want to hear, because that's the creative methodology of most artists, blundering through, making lots of stuff, having some huge mistakes, and every now and then a wonderful success, But that's how it works, So it's really good to hear that. And also the fact that you embrace mistakes, Eric Kessels has written a brilliant book. He's a lovely Dutch graphic designer, very, very important Dutch graphic designer. And he's written a book called Failed It, which is about all creative mistakes and how they lead to artistic ideas. Kessels, if anyone want to look him up. It's about £5 on Amazon. Not that I validate Amazon in any way particularly, but it's a very cheap, brilliant little book that shows how creative mistakes can become the most brilliant ideas.
And constructivism as well, things that turned inside out, upside down, torn apart. You don't know what's going to happen next.
So what have you done? How have you embraced a mistake? This part of this is about your tenacity too. They want to know that you're tough, that when things go wrong, you won't sit there looking at them blankly for answers, that you'll say, well, I'm going to give it another go. Oh, gosh, that's a big old mess. Let's see what we can pull out of the ashes here. Or maybe I need to rewind a bit. Maybe I was off on a bit of a funny tangent here. We need to go somewhere else. And then this last one here, they want to know that you've got some ambition. Now, I don't think any young person generally hasn't got much ambition. But if you feel like you might have trouble with discussing that ambition, or you really don't know, well, try and map out a couple of things. There's nothing wrong with having an open mind. So I love the idea of becoming a graphic designer, and I think that would be really fun. I don't know why I keep talking about graphics today. I've been making quite a lot as a photographer. Or I really love the idea of becoming a contemporary sculptor, but I don't really know how I'd pay the bills with that. But that's why I'm here to see you. Bring it back to them. That's why I've come here to do this course, because I want to become amongst the best contemporary sculptors coming out of St. Martin's next year. Or I want to try and learn how to become a superb architect. And I know this is a very long journey, but I'm committed to making that journey through my bachelor's and master's, and then signing off as a architect 7 years later. That's how long it takes. So all of these things, they want to know that you've got a bit of energy. Okay.
Yeah, you might want to be an academic. You might
Heaven
want to.
forbid. None of us set out trying to do that. It just sort of grabs you, doesn't it? At some point, Joe, it comes to you, that one. So, researching a course in university, I can't stress how important this is. Yeah, I've seen interviewees really sort of thrown by this in physical interviews before, because they don't know who the course staff team are. Now, if you're going to go to have an interview from these people, there's probably 5 or 6 of them in the course. Make sure you know who they are and what they've done. And there's also an element of vanity here. So if you're dealing with somebody on a course and you can mention a piece of work they made, or something that they're doing, or the show they're in, they'll think this person understands this course. Oh, and they make me feel very good too, because artists are usually fairly tortured creatures, so it's quite nice to hear something like that sometimes. Make sure that you've read the university's website and you understand the course. Because if they say something about, well, what would you think about Year 2's modules when we do experimental practice? How would you feel about that? You might say, well, do you do that? And that wouldn't sound great, would it? It'd be much better if you say, oh, I was having a look at that. I've got a few questions. Make sure that you've just had a bit of a look at it, even if it's on the train on the way up to your interview, or in the back of mum and dad's car, if you're particularly lucky. Sit down, have a bit of a look at this stuff. Think, do I know the course? Do I understand it? Do I understand who works on it? Make sure that you understand, the program and how it works, and make sure that you've been to an open day if you can get into one. Make sure you've been along and had a look. And if not, just get in touch with admissions. That's their job. When can I come along and see something? I'm really interested in, spending my money and coming to your course. They'll roll out the red carpet. They really will. They'll make extra days that don't even exist to have you in, So this is a hard one. Confidence and communication skills. A student once said to me in a critique in a university, and this is a really hard critique on a bachelor's course in their final year, how can I be more confident? I'm never confident in critiques. And I said, the number one way to be confident is to make lots of work and be proud of it. And I do stand by that all the way through. I think your confidence comes, really through being proud of what you've made and walking up with something under your arm or in the digital ether somewhere, which represents you in a way that you're proud of. So spend some time on it. Make a good portfolio. If you don't have enough good work in it, make some more good work. If you're a creative person, you'll be out making day and night. Yeah, I'm always up day and night, always, always, always. And I know my team are as well. Every single last one of us, even as a senior leader here, I'm up making stuff all the time. Lots of graphics at the moment, which I can't stop saying graphics. Lots of photography, lots of learning new things. I'm teaching myself AI within Photoshop at the moment. That's taking me up till about midnight most nights at the moment, trying to do snippets of that on time that I've got spare. So, it's all very exciting. And not that I'm a huge techie, but I love how new tools can help me do ideas. So at the moment, that's what AI is helping me do a bit. I'm going to show Jo some stuff that will scare her at some point. I found that you could drop a shirt which you've found somewhere on any old catalogue or a dress or something onto a model you'd photographed and make it hang perfectly in a couple of clicks. And it was
I know.
It blew me away that you could take actually a piece without that piece being modified. So I've been trying to learn that really well. I'm a new beta of Photoshop. So, quite often we're mucking around doing things at other times. And it's, that confidence comes through being able to talk about your work, new techniques and things that you're learning. And also really having an encyclopedic knowledge of the course that you're applying to. You could learn that course inside out, or the information that they've carefully put there, usually a video format for you to learn, by just watching it 3 or 4 times the day before you go and writing down a few questions that you've got about what they say. If you come with questions, see, the thing is, if you turn up to an interview without any questions, they'll give you lots. And if you turn up with a lot of questions, you'll have them on the back foot and they'll think you're a pretty sharp cookie usually. So, it's better to come with the questions yourself than open yourself up to the firing of many, many questions. That's what I would say. And I probably interviewed a couple of thousand bachelor students over the years. So I would, in fact, probably quite a lot more than that. But, it's good to know that. And it's good to realize that if you're quiet and you don't sort of lead things a bit, they will start putting stuff your way. And they do that out of goodness, not to try and trip you up or to have sport with you. They're doing that to make sure that they've got the right fit for the course. Okay. And usually if you're firing the questions off, they're thinking, okay, this person seems pretty good. Practical preparation. Number 1, sleep before you go to an interview. Make sure you're well rested and you haven't done anything the night before that's stressful. Make sure that your head's in a good place with things. Make sure you've eaten and that you've turned well for it. And that's all really important. Bottom of the Maslowian table, sort of simple functional stuff, and make sure you're in a good place to have an interview. Confirm the format. Make sure you understand if it's in person or online, when it is. Make sure your technical stuff works, okay? And make sure that you plan and manage your time effectively so that you don't get there 10 minutes before, nearly in tears and desperately trying to find some room with somebody in. And if you're completely lost and you get to a university, go straight to the main reception. Don't try and find any of the information you've got and just present them with what you've got, and they'll lead you there. And usually somebody will come out and take you straight to the desk. They're used to lots of people turning up in a flap, and their job is to try and de-escalate that and make sure you're comfortable. Okay.
I'd turn your phone off when you're going into an interview.
Yes, always.
Absolutely. Or put it on silent if you're expecting something. There's nothing more disrespectful than a phone going off on a one-to-one online virtual interview.
Yes, it's like dinner parties, isn't it? I take a basket around, make all my friends put them in, because us old people are even worse sometimes. So I get them all to chuck them in the basket and I put it away, and everyone looks very terrified for 10 minutes, and then they start talking and having a nice time. But yeah.
And also look yourself, that's the other thing, present yourself as if you're interested in yourself. Be yourself, be comfortable for sure. But, if you're a fashion designer, be a little bit fashionable. If you're, going for graphics, maybe you want the geeky look. I don't know. Be yourself. Be yourself. That's the main thing. I think
don't
true
be afraid
to
of that.
yourself.
No, you don't need a suit and tie to turn up for an art college interview. Okay, lots of people will think that's not expected in any way. Your tutors won't look like that. At best, they'll have a nice over jacket and a pair of decent brogues on, but generally, they'll be in their jeans, most of them. And that might sound quite preposterous to you to go for a university interview, but if you're going for an art university interview, that's generally how it is. And that's usually what it is. And they're pretty cool, fashionable lot, most of them. But you're not expected to be there, dressed up, looking super smart. Just look presentable and look approachable and look open and look friendly. And, don't worry if you've got a whole load of cool tattoos or piercings or anything like that. That's part of you. Don't go hiding yourself away. Be yourself. Yeah, absolutely. And that just builds with this positive mindset at the end here. So they're looking for passion, not just polished work. Yeah, they're looking for somebody who'll be a good fit in a group. who's got energy, that will give, not just take. Okay. And then they're also wanting you to try and treat rejection as learning opportunities as well too. It might be that you get sort of turned down for the course, but then they might offer you something slightly different. That quite often happens. They might say, well, look, we don't think you'd be appropriate for this course. However, we've got these other options. How would you feel about those? And sometimes those options are actually much better than the option that you've proposed in the first place, because they know what's best for you in that university. They understand after talking to you where you're going to fit. You know, these people spend hours and hours working with students like you. Yeah, they're usually going to give you the best option that they can, and sometimes that might not be the one that you propose, or you might get a rejection through and you think, oh no, that's terrible, but do have a look at it. But it might say, but we would love to offer you the opportunity of, you know, they might say that you've applied to graphics and we're terribly sorry, we don't think you're quite focused enough for that course. However, we think you'd be excellent for visual communication, and your interests are much more diverse and would fit far better with that, where you'd be able to explore photography and copywriting and things like that to help set a business up. So some of that stuff would be really great. You know, you need to embrace that sort of stuff if it comes up. And then finally, yeah, show that you're willing to grow and you're confident and that you want to be a part of things. I always think one of the best things you can say at the end of any interview, and I haven't put it on the sheet, but I probably should have done when I wrote it, is just to tell them what you're going to bring to the university, not what you're going to take. Yeah, I think I'll be a really good person at working with broad range of learners. I think that my digital skills learned at my times from OCAD will hold me in really good stead as we move towards the future. I think that my technical abilities, or my creative play, or my abilities to work with international people, being an international student, you know, will make me a strong contender for your course. Yeah, it'd be lovely to hear some stuff like that. So coming back up to the top, any questions on this at all? Because this is the bulk of what we're talking about today. After this, I'm going to show you a bit of technical stuff, just like, you know, things that you must remember really when you're applying to a course. Is there anything there? We will open up and have a group chat at the end, or have a group ability to talk. But is there anything about this that didn't make sense or you want me to go back over? Because my time is yours now to go over this if you need it. Okay. Right, I'm going to stop sharing that one then. I'm going to close that down. And we're going to come back to the last one here, which is just the sort of checklist really for the course and progressing to university. And I'm not going to read through all the bits of it, but I'm going to tell you what's important here. Okay. Okay, so let's have a little look here. So first bit here is, this is important. This is what you'll get when you finish this qualification in terms of UCAS points. Okay. So first bit here is distinction. It's where we hope you all get to, but in reality, about 30% of students get to distinction. That's probably higher than most other foundation courses. I know 17, 18% is pretty standard for most courses. So we do pretty good with you guys. 112 UCAS points, merit 96 UCAS points, and a pass would be 80 UCAS points. Now, I think we got every student through last year, Joe, didn't we, that didn't drop off the course to go elsewhere? It did. It was a little bit of tweaking, but and a couple of revisions. A couple of students had to make up a little bit more work. We got them through on second pass, which is good. So that was really good. But those points will add to anything else that you've got from your GCSEs and from your A levels.
That would be A levels or AS levels. Do you carry some?
Yeah.
If you've done a part A level or something and you've got an AS level, it does carry things on.
Also BTEC
level 3
as well.
Yeah.
BTEC will carry some points as well too. So make sure you've got enough points to get into the course. And if you haven't, you need to write that down into your application. That although I'm a little bit short of points in this course, I would hope that you would see my application favourably still, because I have the energy and enthusiasm for this course. That's really good, you know. Also understand any sort of additional requirements. This is really important. So a lot of universities will say, we're looking for a foundation diploma with 96 points merit, yeah, on UCAS. However, if you have a look through, it might also say, and this is one of the hardest ones we came across last year from the University of Edinburgh, student must also have 3 A levels at, you know, at I can't remember what the points equivalent was, but it was grade C or above, and they must be within 2 years it must be within the last 2 years, as well as a foundation diploma. So it was oh no, it was Ruskin, Oxford, that was actually incredibly hard criteria. Why would they ask for such a hard criteria? They would ask because they can get it. Yeah. So if you're going to apply to Oxford University to do art at Ruskin, then they're going to set the highest possible criteria to make sure they have the absolute cream of the crop of students. Okay. So really, really tough, all the way down to some that might just be happy with a foundation diploma alone. Now, I know I had a great talk with our progression partners, and we've got a bit of a partnership going with Falmouth University, if anyone's interested, this year, where they will look on a very favourable basis on any of the students coming across to their online degree courses they're doing as well too. So they've got a whole lot of online degree courses they've just started out, which are really brilliant. They're in their 3rd year actually, but that's fairly new for any degree course. And they will take students coming across from us, and they can be very flexible, and they can look at a student case by case, even if you don't have the standard profile of GCSE and A levels, which is great. Also, many other universities are perfectly happy with GCSE and a foundation diploma, but know who you're applying to. Don't go putting them onto your UCAS application unless you are absolutely sure that they're appropriate and you'd get into them, because otherwise you'll just be, you'll be going straight into a revolving door at the start. So that's really important, okay? So go back, have a good look at that. If you've already got one on your UCAS application and you think, oh gosh, I don't hit the criteria, you can ask admissions if you'll still be considered. And you can also ask admissions if there are any other courses at an institution that they would consider you with, even though you've applied to a different one. I know that nearly all universities, if you've applied to one course, they'll still let you interview for a different one rather than having 3 different UCAS choices with the same institution. So it's quite a good strategy, that, just to put one down. My personal strategy with UCAS is to put down, as I'd said on our earlier guidance, 4 choices, leaving 1 free for clearing in case you saw a really good course came up and changed your mind. And once you get some offers at university, of which most of our students got a good few last year, and some of them got every single offer that they wanted, don't rush, even though they will push you to accept it until the deadline at which you need to accept. Okay, so once they give you a deadline, which is usually 2 or 3 months off,
it's about May, I think.
Yeah, you can have a bit more time to grow with us. Yeah, you can start sitting there and going, okay, I've got a place on 2 different courses here. I've got VisCom and I've got photography. I've got graphics. I'm going to sort of just bide my time a bit, and then they'll be sending you emails every week saying, please take up your place. But there's no need to until the deadline that's been shown. Put those deadlines into your diary, and about a week before that, accept one of them on UCAS, and then you're done.
Yeah. You usually get to accept a firm choice and a second option, backup option.
That's right.
So you've really got a fallback situation if something goes, like they don't continue with the course or something.
Yeah. So just that grading responsibility at the end. Make sure that you understand that many universities, very few universities will not accept you if you haven't got English and Maths GCSE. And if you haven't, talk to admissions now. This isn't with us. This is with the admissions of the university. You're progressing beyond the OCAD. You need to be talking to them and saying, I put my application in, but I've looked at the core skills on this course. Actually, it does require that I have GCSE English, and I don't have that at the level required. Would you accept me doing functional skills on the side at the same time? Or would you still accept me anyway based on my portfolio? So ring up admissions now, make a little mark on your file rather than reject it. If you just leave it, what will happen is they'll just say, qualifications not met, reject. Okay, it's a very quick, simple back office job, which is all your effort gone if you don't do that. So if you think you don't hit those core qualifications, make sure you've gone through them, drop a little note to admissions, put your UCAS details on there so they're correct, and say, please get back to me regarding this. Okay. And quite often now, because of what I talked about right at the start, this dip in the demographic, you'll find that many of those universities will turn around and say, actually, we will take a view on this at the moment, because they've got a bit more space than they have in previous years. Does any of that require any further drilling down into? Are there any questions about that you want to drop into the chat? Anything at all there? I'm hoping I'm being super thorough here, but you're a quiet bunch today. Okay. Right, let's close that down then. And I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to come back to screen here. There we go. Okay, so hopefully that's given you a nice run through. Now we're going to hit the little bit of time at the end here, which we're going to use as a Q&A. Now, I think it would be really important to try and maybe just do a question each or something that you're thinking about each and drop it in the chat. Or I'm more than happy if you just turn off mics. You know, there's only a small handful of us here. There's only 7 of us here. So if you want to ask some questions, this is a really good time, and it will benefit you and it will benefit any other students that are watching this online, which I know the bulk will do it that way round. So why not have a go? Just put something in that's been on your mind. I'm quite sure with all of this stuff, there must be something you're thinking about. And you've got probably 2 of the most senior people here at Oakhead here to give you a hand with things straight away. So like, you know, let's do that. Anyone want to lead with a question? Just going to bring the chat up for myself here, see if there's anything there. How long is a typical interview? Well done, great. I'm glad we've kicked off with a question here. So a typical interview is usually around between 10 and 20 minutes. They're fairly short. The longest I've heard of is a panel interview at St. Martin's at around half an hour. Yeah. And there's something else interesting to mention there, that when you're doing an interview, it can either be with a single person or it can be with a panel. So if you see the word panel interview, it usually means 2 or 3 people will be interviewing you. And that might sound really scary, but usually actually it's a much more comfortable environment.
Yeah.
I quite like panel interviews because people play off each other, because you're not just dealing with one personality, you're dealing with a broad sort of, you know, course feel there, which means if there's someone that doesn't quite fit you or doesn't quite get you, there almost definitely is within a panel. So you'll find one person you'll gravitate to. And the instruction, when I used to brief tutors on doing this, sometimes when we would sit down and do it, I would say, you know, if the student gravitates to one of us, let's the other one of us shut up, which is sometimes hard for me. But we would try and be quiet and let the student, you know, be heard and let the student work with that tutor. So, you know, that's what we try and do. But yeah, definitely somewhere between at the very least 10 minutes and at the very most half an hour. I think half an hour is extreme personally, but it's usually just because there's a bit of organisation to do. Anybody else got another question as we go along?
You may get a tour as well. Sometimes students take you on a tour and you can ask the students some questions, what their experience of interviews were like or something like that, that might help you.
There's a really good website called the Student Room. I don't know if any of you found the Student Room. Anyone give me a hands up or a thumbs up if they have, just so I can sort of look at my screen and feel a bit of feedback. So if you get yourself onto the app, I got a thumbs up there. So on the Student Room, you can talk to other students who are already on courses. Very dangerous stuff for universities.
Yeah, when you say don't come here or something, you know.
And to work alongside that as well too, there's a website called Unistats. Unistats is good because it gives the student perception of courses and how happy people are. It might be that a certain course at a certain university is known as being the best in the country, but it might have gone horribly wrong in the last year or two and the students were really unhappy. So you need to understand that thing. You need to understand how good the course feels. And you've got a chance to answer questions directly to other students on the courses. So Unistats would be a really good one for that. Have we ever had anyone go on a jewellery design, onto jewellery design from Foundation? Thanks, Simon. That's great. Yes. Good coffee there. Yes, we have lots and lots. Yeah. So we've had lots of people go across and do that. Was there a particular course you were thinking about there? Because there's quite a few courses doing jewellery design now, either within design courses as a module or doing it more broadly.
Or you can do an accessory, also do accessories, because there's ones that are more sort of goldsmithing using precious metals, and there's the ones that sort of do everything like handbags or shoes or jewelry.
I can see goldsmiths down there. Okay, no, I haven't had a student go to that particular course at Goldsmiths, but I did have 2 progress to Goldsmiths last year. 2 students went across there last year, so we do have students going there, and it's great. I love it. I love it because it's a lovely old art college, and it's got that old art college vibe. Quite a few of the colleges now are quite sanitized when you go into them. They don't quite have that feel. Goldsmiths feels like a lovely old art college, and it's one of my favourites. It's a great place to go. Particularly good for painting and drawing as well too. Fantastic stuff there, but it's very good for some of the craft based as well. Anybody else got anything else? No? Would anyone like to hang on their own at the own and have a one-to-one there? If we're going to draw this to a close, is there anybody that's keen just to hang with Joe and I? If others filter off now, then we'll take your hands up. And if not, maybe give us a wave if you're gonna leave. Thank you, Simon. Brilliant. So fresh coffee, excellent.
They come quick
All
and
right.
often.
Yeah, I know, it's lovely. It's brilliant. Simon's not always in the studio. Brilliant today. Okay, thank you all ever so much for your time today. And I hope this has been helpful. And I hope for those of you looking at this online, any questions that you've got, you just refer them back to your tutors and we'll talk to you about them. I know we're a little bit busy at the moment. It's because we're busy with all of your applications, okay? So if we're a little bit slower than normal in getting back, it's not that we're not completely focused on all of your journeys. We are, and we're excited by them. We love working with you all. Okay. Thank you all very much and take care. That's great. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Right, I've just stopped the recording.